Is old school Peter Jackson returning to make the ultimate modern splatter gore horror film? Let's talk about it. Peter Saturday from Universal Dork back again to talk about this weird news that I just heard today, that Peter Jackson was doing this interview with this guy named Alex Rittman, this UK reporter guy, and he actually mentioned something very intriguing. The first thing is that he's remastering his kind of splatter cult classic horror films into 4K, most likely for like a fancy ass new Blu-ray release. So that would be like 1987's Bad Taste and 1989's Meet the Feebles, which I've never been a giant fan of. I like the fact that it exists in theory, but watching it, never really had a really great time with that one. And then, of course, one of my all-time favorite splatter horror cult classics from 1992, Dead Alive, aka Brain Dead, depending on where you're watching it. I'll never forget the first time I saw that. I would say that this is probably one of the best splatter horror gore films of all time. Probably only second to Evil Dead 2. But still, I watched Dead Alive recently and it blew my frickin' mind. So damn good. It was a long time since I've seen it, so I would buy at least 2 out of the 3 of these remastered films. I'd probably give Meet the Feebles a try, but I would really love to, at the very least, get Dead Alive in my collection for Blu-rays. And also, I wouldn't mind seeing 1994's Heavenly Creatures again. It's been way too long since I've seen that. Very curious about giving that a rewatch. And then, of course, one of my favorite Peter Jackson films as well, The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox. He had a pretty good run for a little while, and then he did the Lord of the Rings films, which I absolutely adore. Can't get enough of those, especially the extended versions. But anyway, the thing that was most interesting to me was hearing that in this interview, he mentions that he's going to be apparently returning to the splatter cult classic style filmmaking and putting out a film that is going to be somehow connected or taking place in the same universe as Dead Alive or Brain Dead. Very intriguing. I would have never thought that he would actually do this. And I was just thinking about this the other day before this was announced, how cool it would be if he would go back to his roots and do something more akin to his original, like really outrageous stuff rather than like the big blockbuster films that he was pumping out for a long time, which I'm not that big of a fan of. Like he totally botched the Hobbit films, and that, the King Kong thing was okay. Didn't really do much for me. And then I don't even know what he's done after that. I kind of just stopped paying attention to Peter Jackson, to be honest. So I'm a little bit blown away that he would even consider doing something like this. I don't know if he would be the director or just like a producer on a film like this. Maybe he's trying to jump on the Evil Dead bandwagon, like launching this kind of like new universe of Dead Alive, like Brain Dead style films that would take place in the same universe and stuff. Now, as excited as I am to hear that he may be returning back to this genre, hopefully as a director, just because I would like to see him kind of put to the test to kind of see if Peter Jackson still has it. Sometimes I feel it's kind of hard for these directors who were once kind of like cult film directors like Sam Raimi, people like that, Peter Jackson, to maybe bounce back into their old sort of, I'd like to say like punk rock selves, like DIY, practical effects, like splatter films. If you've dabbled in movies that have just gargantuan amounts of CGI in them and have worked in these big Hollywood environments, I feel like this might not translate anymore with a director like Peter Jackson. I hope that I'm wrong. I'm very curious. Perhaps he's kind of got the itch. He's gotten maybe sick of doing this sort of like really artificial looking like bullshit style filmmaking. In a lot of cases, I mean, I'll fight anyone on the fact that the Hobbit films were complete bullshit filmmaking. I'm very curious to see what he does here. Maybe he'll revive this Sumatran rat monkey, bring it back onto the scene to pose a new monstrous threat to another environment. Or maybe he'll bring back the 2 main characters, Lionel and Paquita, from Dead Alive. You could bring them back into it. It'd be really cool to see them, the original cast members who survived, spoiler alert, absolutely one of the most grotesquely fun finales I've ever seen put to film. So it'd be great to see those 2 actors come back in some capacity. I just don't know if Peter Jackson can resist the urge to use tons of like crappy CGI in order to make things, a lot simpler and cut corners. This is sort of a controversial take, I would say, but as much as I love The Frighteners, which I think is absolutely fantastic, Michael J. Fox, so charming in that film, the only thing that kind of keeps it from being a complete 5-star film for me like complete cult classic. I saw that back in the theater back in the day, is the overuse of the CGI with that sort of like phantom type ghost Grim Reaper character. And some of that stuff, like, it just really didn't age well. It really didn't look good back then. I remember seeing that in the theater and being like, this looks kind of like fucking dog shit. I wish that he would have just went all practical with that creature. How fantastic that it really would have just made that movie absolute perfection. So I'm afraid now that if he tries to go back to this Dead Alive style universe and make this new movie, that he is just going to shit the bed on it with tons of bad CGI blood. Now, that's one of the things that I hate most in horror films is CGI blood. It's so goddamn lazy. Just get a bunch of practical blood, use practical gore. If you're going to do something like this, Peter Jackson, forget that you're some, fantastic award-winning director and just go back to your grimy old style the way that you did it. Fans will eat it up. It will be a big deal. But if you shit the bed using all sorts of crappy CGI, which I think that you're not going to resist the urge, I think this film, whatever it is probably going to fail. And this article, interestingly enough, did say that Peter Jackson is kind of into AI. He's not opposed to it at all. He likes it. So he's used it just for remastering purposes and stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised if Peter Jackson does this new sort of film with this kind of like hobbit style mentality. Hope that I'm wrong about it. But regardless, I'm really intrigued by this. Let me know what you think in the comments about a new movie that takes place in the Dead Alive universe by Peter Jackson. Do you think he's got what it takes still? Or do you think he's going to make some new Hollywood bullshit version of the beloved classic? Let me know in the comments. All right, that's it for me today. Have a good one, and I'll see you soon.